needs no introduction. Edna Aden is, of course, the First Lady, former First Lady of Somalia, or the Somali Republic, former Foreign Minister of Somaliland, and currently the CEO and founder of Edna Maternity Hospital or Edna University Hospital. And she has done what 100 people probably would not do in terms of accomplishment. And as somebody mentioned this morning, she has the history of Somaliland in her memory. So we could all learn a lot from her speech today. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me this chance to talk to you once again about my country, Somaliland, a country that I love very much. And what I would like to do today is do it in slightly different ways, a different way. I often speak to you about the history of my country because very few people know about the true history of Somaliland. And the memories of the generation, the majority of our people who were born 30 or 25 years ago, or before that, there's very few who were born before that, but those born after know of Somalia. They know of Somalia because the media goes to Somalia, there's been terrorists in Somalia, there's been pirates in Somalia, there's been warlords in Somalia, the Marines have landed on the beaches of Mogadishu, Captain Phillips' movie was there, Black Hawk Down was there, Christiane Amanpour and CNN were there. People, the world hears about Somalia. Somalia, Somalia, Somalia. But the world forgets that before Somalia, there was a country, there are other Somali inhabited countries. There's French Somaliland, La Côte Française des Somali, which is now the Republic of Djibouti. You have Djibouti, La Côte Française des Somali, Somali inhabited country, majority Somali inhabited. Then you have Somaliland, which was British Somaliland Protectorate, which incidentally was the only Somali inhabited country that was never colonized. It had a treaty of protection with Great Britain, therefore it had always been sovereign. And then next to it is La Somalia Italiana. So you have three different colonial powers, French, British, Italian. And the territory of Somaliland was defined by Anglo-French treaties and Anglo-Italian treaties and Anglo-Ethiopian treaties. So the borders of Somaliland, as they are now, were established in 1884. The Somaliland of today had nothing to do with it. We inherited it from the British. And then Somaliland became independent on the 26th of June, 1960. This I'm going back, all of you know, but there is one or two people who may not know this. On the 26th of June, Somaliland, British Somaliland Protectorate, became the firstborn, first independent Somali inhabited nation. We own that position of seniority. We were the firstborn. We have that place in history. Cannot be taken from us. And after independence, a week later, Somalia also became independent from Italy. And the two sovereign Somali countries voluntarily united. One did not conquer the other. There was no invasion of one over the other. It was a voluntary union. A union which was legitimate because the people wished it. Unions happen. Companies unite. Nations unite. regions unite, states unite. Look at Europe today. Look at the United States today. It's the union of parts of the world who wish to unite in some form or other, federate, unite, whatever. Union, the European Union, one of the most powerful economic powers in Europe, who during the Second World War would have imagined that Germany and France would become allies. Who would have imagined that? But they thought about it and they saw the wisdom of union, the benefit it would bring. They developed laws and clauses that would protect each country's interests and the people of each country. And today they have what, 28, 29 countries form the European Union. And others are wishing to become part of that. Unions, some unions work, some partnerships work. In the case of Somaliland and Somalia, it did not work. Just as much as the union between Senegal and Gambia, who also united after each were independent. They united. Gambia was a British colony. Senegal was a French colony. They had different colonial backgrounds, but they united because of their proximity, their geographical location. 6 months after the union, they withdrew from that union because they discovered that the union, the aspirations of the people did not satisfy the people of both sides. They withdrew from it. Gambia became Gambia. Senegal returned to being Senegal. Senegambia was abolished. Nobody punished Gambia nor Senegal for entering into that union and for withdrawing from that union. Unfortunately, Somaliland is being punished for doing exactly that. We went into a union, it didn't work, we withdrew from it. We didn't withdraw from it 6 months after we united, we gave ourselves time. It took us 31 years to extricate ourselves from that hasty and wrong union, and in fact illegal union, because our union was never ratified by the two parliaments, the powers of the two countries. So after it failed, we withdrew from it.
Next one.
Next, please.
Where's-
You have
Page down.
somebody, please somebody.
And somebody's married here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah,
Thank you, Bergel. Just going down memory lane, Somaliland and the government of Somalia was formed of people from Somaliland and from Somalia. And at one time, the Prime Minister of Somalia was my former husband, Ahmed Ibrahim Agal. And that red carpet is on the west lawn of the White House. The delegation of the Prime Minister was being received by President Johnson and Mrs. Johnson. It was received with pomp and pageantry, 21-gun salutes. We were landed there with the presidential helicopter, and we were later given Air Force One to travel. That was the banquet. Vice President Herbert Humphrey, beautiful, elegant Lady Bird Johnson, and others. But then, what happened? There was a military conflict between the people of Somaliland and the people of Somalia, and the government of Somalia. And Siad Barre unleashed his military power over the people of Somaliland. Tanks. And before we move from that picture, let me also explain to you that the cost of one military tank, for you economists, by the way, the cost of one military tank would have trained 200 doctors and 2,000 midwives. And governments don't only have one tank, they're like a whole fleet of tanks. And I think Siad Barre had 500 tanks scattered throughout Somalia. Because any tank, any communist country who wanted to get rid of its old tanks donated it to a very willing recipient, Siad Barre. And tanks, when they're idle and no good, so they use them to kill, to destroy, and to bombard civilians. That's what tanks do. That was a hospital. Shelled, bombed, landmined. That's what bombs do. Mass graves, the bones of civilians, women and children, and over 20-something mass graves have been identified and catalogued by the United Nations forensic departments. Why put children and women into mass graves? How powerful does it make that military commander? How brave must he become for doing that? So there's got to be very, very brave and courageous military commanders, because dozens of mass graves have been discovered. Thousands of human bodies and human skulls are being discovered. This is one of the hospital rooms in the capital. And that was after MSF had fixed it a little bit, fixed the holes. Instead of having trained health workers, you had goats. Now tell me how well you can run a hospital with goats roaming around. Now, that being bad enough, I believe I would like to discuss today the destruction that was even worse than what we had seen. Because the destruction that took place was not only from the bombs or the MiG fighters that would take off from Hargeisa airport only to bomb the city of Hargeisa. It was not from the tanks nor the genocide, but it was through the deliberate destruction of the links that Somaliland had with the rest of the world. Diplomatic missions were cleaned out of Somalilanders. Every mission in the world, every diplomatic mission in the world had somebody from Somalia. Through those missions, there were progressive and aggressive propaganda. Somalilanders who wished to separate, to withdraw from that union, or who rebelled against Siad Barre, were described as terrorists, shifta, rebels, mercenaries, militia, secessionists, Khaldan, Ka'andid, Somalidid, and many, many other ways to describe them. Not freedom fighters, not people seeking justice. Now the propaganda through the Somali diplomatic missions was also through bilateral communications, through diplomatic contacts, through the media, because they control the media, by the word of mouth. And to this day, there is a continuous and unending energy spent by the people of Somalia to discredit Somaliland. Now, during the Civil War, when 1 million of our people died, another 1 million sought refuge in neighboring countries. Somehow the war ended, Somalilanders liberated Somaliland and returned to Somaliland after 11 years of civil war. We found there were no resources. The country was level to the ground. 95% of Somaliland was level to the ground. The people had no leadership. The best brains had emigrated to other countries, many to Europe, many to the Americas, Arab countries, Africa, wherever they could find shelter, that's where our people went. By 1991, when we came back to our country, the name of Somaliland was wiped out from the memory and from the face of the earth. It only took 31 years. There were landmines everywhere. There was no food, there was no water. You saw the hospitals being run by goats. There was no safety. There was lawlessness. There was anarchy. You have no leadership. You have no military hierarchy. The young, hot-headed pick up guns everywhere. The Kalashnikov could be had for less than what it cost to buy a loaf of bread. Give me my gun, give me lunch today. That's how cheap they were, because they were everywhere. Our youth were given the name of Daidai. And technicals, cars converted into military arsenals. I was chased by a technical with an anti-aircraft gun mounted on it from the Ministry of Health to the Madahtouya in 1991. And the car that I was driving in was driving, had been driving normally, before that, and then suddenly began to zigzag. I said, what happened? And he said, we're being chased. I said, what do you mean we're being chased? He said, yeah, we've been chased by a technical. And I looked back, and there's an anti-aircraft gun truck following us with an anti-aircraft gun. I said, come on, you don't need an aircraft gun to shoot an old woman. Stop. So I got on the car and said, okay, it's going to make you into a bigger man by shooting an old woman with an anti-aircraft gun. Do it. But I'm in Hargeisa. And you'd better know where you're going to hide after you've shot me with your anti-aircraft gun. So anyway, I'm here to tell the tale. That's what Hargeisa was like. That's what Somaliland was like in 1991. We had no friends because we had been isolated from the rest of the world. Our neighbors also had their own problems. Ethiopia, Eritrea had their problems. Djibouti had its problems with food. Yemen, the war broke out in Yemen. And at that time I was WHO representative in Djibouti. I had 12,000 Yemeni refugees on trucks in the Red Sea. And as WHO representative, I had to make sure that we took water, food, and medication and emergency aid to the 12,000 who were on the ships. And how would I get to the ships? With an inflatable boat provided by the military, by the French Marines in Djibouti. And we would pop on the waves to get to the ships that were about 9 kilometers outside of Djibouti to go and inspect the women and the children. So who had time to help Somaliland? Nobody. Everybody had their own problems. So we had to take matters into our own hands. We had to reclaim our identity. For years we were being referred to as Arwa Woyi Weyan, Arwa Somali Qaldan Weyan, Wa Kandidki Weyan. We were called anything and everything but our rightful name. Nobody ever referred to me as Mrs. Edna from Somaliland. So we had to reclaim our identity, put Somaliland and Somalilanders back on the map. We had to find, family members had to find each other. With the bombs and the shelling and the refugee status, members lost members of their family. Many children were left orphaned, were just, saved by whoever was there at the time, and they just moved with the people. Many children don't even remember who their family were. We'd have to find our friends. Did we have any friends? Very few. What resources did we have? None. Did we have any foreign missions? Of course not. Did we have representatives? Who would they be representing? So when I became foreign minister in 2003, I became the 7th or the 8th foreign minister, number 8. And I think we have now, what, 11 or 12? We're the 12th now. And the strategy was to get our name back, get our own identity back. And I would travel to as many countries as I could. I would gather information about my country, whatever information I had, and I would often talk about my hospital as an example, in which I will, of course, talk to you about, because it's a living example of what people can do under very difficult circumstances. And I often traveled on a Somaliland passport, because I do not have any other passport. I had a Djibouti passport, because I was made an honorary citizen of Djibouti when I was decorated by the government of Djibouti. But as a foreign minister of Somaliland, it was difficult for me to travel with another country's passport. So I would travel on the Somaliland passport. And I think I filled up 7 passports in the years that I was there. And only, I need to show you something. And 2 days ago, we took a petition to the British Prime Minister in London, in the UK, to number 10 Downing Street. And we had to show our identity. Now, I had my Djibouti passport, but I entered number 10 Downing Street with my Djibouti, with my Somaliland diplomatic passport. So I tell you. This is the first time I have a red one. When I was foreign minister, we did not have a diplomatic passport. We just had the regular blue one. And I went to the European Union, Canada, America, Korea, South Africa, Mozambique, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, all on my Somaliland passport. Because when I would get an appointment, or I would be invited to go somewhere, I would say, well, should we talk about the visa requirements to enter your country? Because I'll be coming with my Somaliland passport. Now they've invited me already. And they cannot say, oh, but if you have a Somaliland passport, then you cannot come. They've invited me, we discussed about what I was going to do during the discussions I was meeting with. So they had no choice but to give me a visa on my Somaliland passport. And to this day, I still travel on my Somaliland passport wherever I can. That's my identity. So we had to do all that. I traveled to these countries many times. Italy, a couple of times. UK, many times. The European Union, Brussels, Holland, Scandinavian countries, Finland, Norway. I did all the snow and all the winter travel, in Norway to, Sweden. Wherever the need to speak about Somaliland took me, I would go. In Somaliland, we had no hotels. We had no trained diplomats. So whenever we received visitors, they would stay in 1 or 2 hotels that we have, which many of them were still under construction. And sometimes visitors would ask me if they came to visit me in the office, which, by the way, was very, very small. I didn't even have a meeting room. I didn't have a computer. They used to take my laptop. My salary was $293. I was paying my own driver $300 a month. So my driver was getting $7 more than I was getting as salary. And I was using my salary to teach my staff how to use the computers. So my first 5-6 months' salaries was spent on spending selected staff from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to go and have computer lessons. because we received one computer, somebody had to use it. We had no photocopier. We went across the yard to the Ministry of Dechinta to make our photocopies. We had no internet. The nearest internet was in my house, in the hospital where I lived, which, by the way, was also the office. The top floor of my hospital was the office of the Minister of Social Affairs, which I squatted in because we had no offices for the Ministry of Social Affairs. We had no water. And when somebody said, excuse me, do you have anywhere where I can wash my hands? Do you have a restroom? That was the most difficult question because I had none. We had no toilets. Men went to the other ministries to use that for their business. But if I needed to wash my hands, I took the car and I went back to my house and back again. We had no mobile phones. We had our telephones, no secretaries, except one very, very good guy, Yusuf. Remember that guy? That guy is worth his weight in gold. But in spite of all this, Somaliland continued to grow and progress. Our people came back. We rebuilt our country. Our economy has grown. We have great hotels now. We hold conferences. Even international conferences have been held in Somaliland, which have brought people from other countries, African countries, European, Arab countries. We have multi-million businesses. Coca-Cola has the second biggest plant in Africa, in Somaliland. Second to the one in Nigeria, to South Africa. That's millions of dollars. We have businesses, furniture, building, juices, mattresses, I don't know, so many businesses. People are investing, international companies are coming in. I see a lot of Chinese, I see a lot of Asian-looking people in the streets. Today, Somaliland has traffic lights, yes, but we also have traffic jam. It takes me 40 minutes to get from my hospital to Mansour Hotel and back again, when it used to take me 5 minutes in the old days. We have achieved a lot in Somaliland, but we need to work hard on keeping Somaliland together. We must rekindle and bring back our strong patriotism. We defeated Somalia because we were one. We were Somalilanders for that cause against a common enemy, injustice, against terrorism, against communism, against Ziad Barre. We were one nation. I'd like to see that kindled again. We have maybe become too many. We've become a nation that says, where are you from? Which region are you from? Who is your... we don't need to do that. We're Somalilanders. We should move forward as Somalilanders. Because our fragmentation will only benefit our enemy. Together we'll be stronger. Divided will be food for anybody. And there'll be many mass graves waiting for us. We need to use our energy to rebuild, but not to fight each other. Yes, political parties are good. That's what democracy is all about. I'm happy that we do have political parties. But political parties must also have the responsibility of keeping the national interest together. It doesn't benefit any party if the identity of Somaliland is damaged. We must sustain democracy, patriotism, nationalism, compete on competencies. I will do better than so-and-so. I will do better for the people in this way. We must compete on constructive, competitive issues. We must not fragment our people again. We must seek powerful friends. We've got to find time to make friends and allies. And if somebody closes the door to us, there may be somebody who will let us come in through the window. Why not? We've waited 25 years. We have a track record of peace and stability, of democracy. We have a constitution. We have law and order. We have a functioning government. We have a track record that is bringing back our people from the comforts of their lives in the diaspora. But if political recognition doesn't come as we would have liked it to happen, maybe we should look at alternative friends. We should make approaches to others. We must also put our house in order. We must be accountable. We must be transparent. There must be an account of what comes in, what goes out, and how it's spent. Whatever we have belongs to the people, and whatever we have must be shared with the people. If we're not accountable, then we've lost 25 years. Our youth must be given hope. They must have something to live for. They must know their identity. We must educate our young. They go to school, and like many would say, today we were talking about my country, Somalia. No, I know you, your family is not from Somalia, you're from Somaliland. Yes, but then that's what the school calls us. Well, the school will call you whatever you don't give them another name. Somalia is all they've heard. I know families who come to us in the holidays. Do you know that there are 23 daily flights land at Hargeisa airports every day in the summer, bringing in tourists, visitors from abroad? 23 flights a day. It's nothing compared to yours, but 23 flights is a lot of people. And the families just say, oh, we're taking the children to Somalia. We're taking the children on holiday. Oh, where are you taking them? We're taking them to Somalia. Do people go to Somalia for a holiday? You want the kids to be shot? No, I'm taking them to Hargeisa. Well, then why call it Somalia? Oh, we're taking them to Burra, we're taking them to Borno, we're taking them to Elgao. Well, say you're going to Somalia. You're going to Somaliland. Yeah, but this is how they buy, the tickets. Because you have not contested it. We must use our energy. We must use every effort that we can make to change and bring back our identity. Because Somaliland otherwise will continue to be punished for the sins of others, for the sins of Somalia, for the sins committed by those who do not wish to have Somaliland alive. And I'm showing you this, not because I want to boast about it, but I just want you to learn from what a crazy old woman could do. On that site, many of you know it, was once a garbage dump. You have trash, that's where you threw it. It was a military parade ground. Sierra used to execute people on it. There were still bones and human remains when I started bulldozing it. That's the hospital started in 1997 after I retired. Just recycled my whole life, took everything I had, got rid of what I didn't need. What am I going to do with a Mercedes when we have no roads? Where am I going to get super fuel for it? What am I going to do with a Rolex watch, gold oyster, when I can get a little Chinese one, and if I drop it, it doesn't break my heart? What am I going to do with my shoes that I would get in Italy, and each foot was measured and would go to my special cobblers, and I would have special handbags and shoes made to fit me. I go to the market in Hargeisa. How much is this pair of shoes? 11, what? 11? That's 10. Okay, 10. I can buy a pair of shoes for $10 in Hargeisa. I'm still as short as I was when I had shoes that cost $1,000. And then something happens to it, I drive out to the car, I say, well, so I sit in my car, I give him my shoe, he fixes it, and he gives me back and says, how much do I owe you? He says, here's 5,000. I'll give you double of what you're asking for, provided you don't chew cut with it. I have that rapport with my people, with the poor, with the sick, with the weak, with the young, with the old. I love my country. So I don't miss my gold Rolls Royce, my Rolex. I don't miss my Gucci bag. I don't miss my Chanel blouse. I've had it, I've worn it, it was great, I loved it. But I love my bedpans, I love my syringes, I love my needles, I love my forceps, I love my sterilizers. I love my premature baby incubators even more. And built. And built. A big gap, that's where I live. That has become my apartment. It was intended to be a balcony. But then I had nowhere else to live. So I lived there. And that's the hospital. My office is there, the training apartments, the classrooms, the guest residences, the hospital is downstairs, we have another building here, we have some buildings in the back. And that's my product. These are the first blue ones. Two of them have now become doctors. I paid for their medical education for 6 years at Amwood University after they graduated from here. And I said, I will send the top 3 girls to university. I couldn't find the third one. 1, 2, 3. What? 6 more years? No, I can't. I couldn't find a third one to pay for their medical training. Only 2 accepted, as if I was sending them to a firing squad. 6 years, 2 girls, not related to me, but their pen is what won them that scholarship. Today they're surgeons. Today they're very responsible professionals, women leaders. That's what the hospital is all about. And this is my Red Army. This is the ones I swear by. The midwives. And I need 1,000 midwives for Somaliland. If we're going to address the maternal mortality, we've got to train 1,000. Now we have a training school now in Gabile. We just graduated 19. The first time midwives are being trained in Gabile. In Berbera, we just graduated the first group. Last month, I started the first group in Ergao. I pay for their teachers, I pay for their books, I pay for their salaries, I pay for their training equipment. What's making me do it, I don't know, but I feel it's my duty. And I've got to reach that 1,000. And these are the ones who are going to make a difference. It's not guns or bullets. These are going to fight the biggest enemy that we have, disease, ignorance. That's my army. And that's the future. And if we're going to have a country for them, we need to put our resources together. It's good to stand from a distance and say, oh, that's wrong and that's wrong. But you need to put away your Gucci bags and you need to put away your Rolex gold watches and come over and roll your sleeves and come back and do something about what's happening. And if you cannot do that and say, I'm going to do whatever I can, then please don't criticize us. We have done it with our bootstraps. We intend to hold on to it. Somaliland will never be anything but Somaliland. The world starved us. The world isolated us. The world denied us our rights to existence. The world denied us our true identity, but we survived. We survived the bombs, we survived the MiGs. Let us put our hands and our hearts together and fight, continue to fight for Somaliland as one. Men and women. Because we can also fight. Because if it hadn't been for women, many Somali men wouldn't be alive today.
Yes.
Who looked after you during the SNM? Who carried your food? Who carried you when you were wounded? Who looked after your logistics? Without them, we would never have liberated Somaliland. Let us liberate Somaliland one more time. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there should be any.
So what do you see Somaliland, where do you see it in the next 25 years?
Oh, brighter. Twice as good as we are today. Because today we're 20 times as good as we were 25 years ago.
What is that recognition given to?
Do you know, don't worry your head with recognition. Look at what you have achieved without recognition. What has the absence of recognition denied you? Yes, we cannot go to bilateral contracts. Yes, we cannot do this and that. We have done so much more than Somalia, which is recognized. So, if recognition, the lack of recognition is allowing me to grow and develop, and recognition is not helping Somalia to put its act together. So continue to look after yourself. Continue to look after your own interests. You are the only one who can make a difference for your people. Yes, you have a right to be recognized. Yes, you tick off all the boxes. Yes, we should have been recognized. We've been denied something we have a right to have, but you're not going to force anybody to recognize you. Prove it, continue to prove to anybody that you will continue to live and survive in spite of their denying you the recognition that they owed you. Teach, educate, rebuild, sort out problems. Don't conflict take over our energy. Move forward, be democratic, have good governance, be accountable. You will do so much more, so much better than countries that are recognized.
Yes.
So target something. When young people ask me when I speak, they say, what can we do? I'm only a little girl. So I say, all right, well, look at the problem that you can solve. It's not everybody who can build a hospital. And by the way, I'm building a university as well, so one madness was not enough. And for the first time in my life, I've taken a loan from Dahabshil, so Dahabshil better stay there. I said, find out what you can do. If you look at the problem, you say, oh no, this problem, yeah, I can't build a Hilton. This is, I can't do that. Find out something that you can do. Go back to that village where your parents came from. Where you go and visit the house or the school your father or your mother went to. Look at that school and say, what do they need? Well, everything's okay, but that roof leaks. Okay, change the corrugated iron roof for that classroom. You've made a difference. Do they have a toilet for boys and for girls? Well, no, but the boys use it in the morning, the girls use it after the boys. Why? I need to go now. I don't see why I should wait for a man to come out of it. Build a toilet for the girls. You've made a whole difference for that school. Do the teachers have an office? Build a small room for the teachers. Do they have a computer? Give them your old computer that you no longer have any need for. Do they have teachers? Pay for one school teacher. Some kids cannot go to school. Yes, education is free, but I still need shoes to go to school. I still need shirts and clothes to go to school. I still need a pen and paper to go to school. I still need transport to take me to wherever the school is. Pay for the education of one child, or 2, or 5, or 20. You would have made a difference. And if 20 of you each take care of 20 other kids, you've solved that problem. You've made that problem that much smaller. So find out what you can do. I was talking to my daughter over there from Baran. It took me 3 years to find teachers who would agree to go to Aragawa for me. The way folk to Aragawa, so what? 3 years. I train girls for you, they never go back. I train bunches, they never go back. I need people from there to train the people there in Aragawa. And last month we started the training, and that's why we're doing that. Take care of the salary of one of the teachers. Put your heads together and say, Edna, thank you. The salary of one girl, we will take care of. We will take care of the office that we have rented for $250 a month to train the students, because we have no classrooms in Aragawa. We have to rent premises. Take care of that expenses for us. Not for me, but for your region. And I can use those $250 for something else. Because in Berbera we were given classrooms, in Gabila we were given classrooms. The University of Timade has given me classrooms. In Berbera we're using the University of the Marine classrooms. So let's put our heads together, find a solution. You have problems, find solutions. Don't give up and say, oh no, there's too many problems, I can't do anything. There is something that you can do. Find it. I hope I've answered your question. Yes. labaduba horta waa laba munaasabad oo qaran 26 Juun waxa weeyaan taariikhdii ummad Soomaaliyeed ugu horeysay oo xubnimada qaadatay weeyaan oo taacidi Soomaaliya oo baynu ugu faanaynaa qaar weli gumaysiga ku jiraan labada kalena way naga dambeeyeen marka horta maalinta 26 Juun waa maalin muqaddis ah waa maalintii Somaliland ugu Soomaaliyeed ay qaadatay xornimada Ingiriiska waxaan kaga qaadanay dood iyo qalin iyo saxiix siyaad barre waxaynu kala soo noqonay dhiig iyo xabad iyo burbur iyo dhimasho 26 Juun rii lagama dhiban 18 May January 91 500,000 people baa laga dhintay marka haddaan 18 May xusi waayo koob iyo 10 sanadood ee dagaalka aynu ku jirnay aynu soo dhacsanaynay ayaan iyadana aan ka tallaabsanay marka waa laba taariikhood labadaba qiimo leh ismana diidayaan doodana kaga taagna marka shakiga iska saar labadaba xus كنا مرمنا سيجارة من دونا ها
والله أنا صوت حيد الحياة تشوف هي يميز كشرب هذا سالتك سمعنا كيورنا وضعي 18 ماي قال مالتي أسلام وسطي سمعنا وياه
ما سو أسلام وخمسة سومال لا بدك تحرق سنتين
هاي عليه مال 18 ماي أنا غير مال في الصحة تورسيك شو نهار غير مال حرية إيش هلوين
هل كان ما أنت تعلم هيك وأنا لا بقول ما قاعد يكرر وين مفاي تقول ياش الجيل يوم فهمتها أي مفاي الله وضع هو مقدس الله وضع هو important ليه الوطن كجون ولا ما صح هذه ليه الوطن كجون مصحنا ده ما كان كودي جواي وبعد ما كان دين دونتا إيه دور كاردور Any other questions? Thank you. Good. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for being here. You have
Thank you, Edna, for that wonderful presentation. I never get tired of Edna's presentation, no matter how many times I hear it. I could sum up what she said in 3 nouns. It's sacrifice, dedication, and drive. And if we just had 100 people who had her sacrifice, because she sacrificed all her possessions to start that wonderful hospital, and if we had 100 people who had to sacrifice the dedication and the drive, like Edna, as an answer to your question would be, we would have doubled where we are today. And if we each think of those 3 nouns, we could be twice as much progressed than where we are today.
Yep.
And in terms of recognition, we have to recognize ourselves. Recognition comes from us. There are a lot of countries very advanced. Of course, I'm not going to compare Taiwan to Somaliland, but Taiwan is an unrecognized country. Of course, they have sponsors that we do not have that let them keep China from taking over. But it's an unrecognized country. And the reason they are where they are is because they believe in themselves. And they develop their human skills. They don't even have the resources that we have in terms of natural resources. So it's something to think about when we think about recognition.